Hello, I'm Dr. Cislina Grosser-Ledbetter, Director of Counseling and Student Development at the University of the District of Columbia, and your host for A Healthy Mind. On this edition of A Healthy Mind, our subject is relationships. My guest is Dr. Barbara Tobias-Holtz. Dr. Tobias-Holtz is a licensed clinical psychologist and a registered nurse. She specializes in individual, couple, and group therapy with a particular interest in mood disorders and relationships. She has extensive experience working with men and women who have substance-related issues and those who have health problems. Her experience as a clinician, educator, conference presenter, and nurse contribute to her holistic approach to gaining new perspectives on life. Welcome, Dr. Tobias-Holtz. You've done a lot.
I have.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
I told the canned speech, but I want them to know who you are, because you are so dynamic.
Oh, thank you. I was tickled when you said holistic approach, because I warn my clients when they come in that I will ask you about your diet, how much water you've had to drink, and some of my assignments include sit-ups, push-ups, and running.
No way.
Absolutely.
Oh,
I really believe that you cannot feel good emotionally if you're not doing well physically, and particularly when you're looking at people of color, that we have to be especially diligent. So tell you about myself.
Tell me about yourself.
I'm a native of California. I was born and raised in Southern California, and I left in '73 with my husband and with our little 3-year-old daughter. Went across country to Huntsville, Alabama. I'd never lived away from the West Coast.
From California to Huntsville.
Huntsville.
Huntsville, okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it was, I've always been adventurous, and so it was definitely a new experience. I'd never lived in the South, but it was the most profound experience I've ever had there. So I think that that's a part of what has made me who I am, my growing up in California, but also having lived all over the United States. My husband at that time was studying for ministry, and so I was a minister's wife for 25 years.
Wow.
And a lot of the work that I do now is based on some spiritual discoveries that I found in my own journey. One is that many times people live their entire life keeping secrets that they think other people will judge them.
Now, you learned this in Huntsville.
I'm
sure.
Actually,
Partially.
you know what? The secret keeping intensified in Huntsville because it was a very conservative faith, and everyone looked perfect except for me, because I knew that I was GED at that time with 1 year of college. And so my background of having dropped out of high school and in and out of foster homes, mother was an alcoholic, there were a lot of things that I had a lot of shame around, a lot of trauma and tragedy. And I was with these people that were just perfect Christians, and so I had to act the way they did. Now, I was a Christian.
Perfect Christian.
I was a spiritual person, but I had to look a particular way. And so while I don't believe that the journey to Alabama created who I became, I do believe that that experience, on the one hand, helped me to develop very strong values and also to be very goal-oriented. So I was married for 25 years in that marriage, married at 17.
That's young.
And pregnant.
And pregnant. Yeah.
Which these are secrets that people don't tell. Mothers will die and they think their children can't count and figure out that the baby came ahead of time.
Sure.
So what I learned over time was that we protect these very private parts of ourselves.
And by we, you mean people or African Americans?
People, I think that people in general do it, but I think that within the African American community, secret keeping is a part of our tradition. And we learn how to fake it till we can make it.
Right.
And we go through life like that.
And so we seem to be so much more broken.
Yes.
What is it about the history, or what are your ideas about why we seem to have dysfunctional relationships, and we're so historically broken, and single parents here and dad's not there? And You have thoughts about
you
that?
know, first of all, I want to dispel the myth that Black people don't have solid families, because historically, in this country, African Americans who come from slavery, that men, if they were separated from their family, they would work to regain their freedom so that they could go back and get that family. I think the other thing that we have to hold on to as a people is that we have extended family. And so many times, auntie is not related to us by blood, but she is auntie, and that's my cousin, and we're
That's
not
right.
related. And so we do have families, we have strong families, and I think that the break, if I look at us historically, one thing that happened is that there was a migration north, and so there was this separation from our family of origin, that family where grandma, grandpa, everyone lives down same street, and there was very much a village mentality. We took care of one another. Went up north, and there was a great bit of distance, but there also began to be a socioeconomic difference between the northern African Americans and those who were in the South.
Thinking what? They're making more money.
They're driving the Cadillacs. Especially a lot went to Detroit, and they made good money in those factories. So I think that that's a part of it. The other part of it, which I lived through, was the Vietnam War. We lost so many of our strong men in the Vietnam War. We either lost them through death, or we lost them through drugs, or we lost them through post-traumatic stress disorder. So when you fast forward to where we are right now, I refuse to believe that we don't want strong relationships. I believe that we don't know how to develop strong relationships.
And why? Why don't we know how to develop them? I mean, it seems
we learn reading, writing, and arithmetic in school. And so after the civil rights movement, what was very important was education. In my generation, education was everything. You get an education and the world is yours. That's what we believed. What we have found is that it took a lot of work, it took a lot of acting like them, meaning those who were not us, so that we can move ahead. Because as a social psychologist, you know, people like people who are most like them. And so we learned to speak standard English, and then we would code switch and go home, and we'd say, girl, you know what's happening. You know? And so that was a beautiful thing. But what we didn't realize, especially for Black women, is that what it took for you to be successful academically and professionally, that is not what it takes to be successful in a relationship.
But do you think that it's necessary? You talked about it's not, we don't teach relationships in school. You can go from K through 12 through PhD and never get a course on it.
Not one.
Do other cultures experience that, or do you think we need it because of some gap that needs to be filled? I think that we all need it. We all need it.
I have taught at HBCUs, I taught at Howard, I've taught at dominant culture institutions, I've attended dominant culture institutions, white schools for the most, and everyone needs it. But my passion is for our people, because we are so broken. So to answer your question, absolutely yes, we need to be taught how to be in a relationship. And I consider there three things that we don't know. Number one, we don't know how to be in a relationship.
We don't know how to be in a relationship.
Number two, we don't know who we are. We think.
What does that mean?
Well, it basically means anyone who describes me would say, oh, she's always together. You believe she's going to always be dressed well, hair looks nice, makeup on, she will always really look together.
But that's not who we are.
But that's not who I am. Much of that was developed so that I could look like them, remember? Back there in Alabama? So that I could look like them, so that I would be acceptable, so that I would be good enough. And so people may be attracted to me because of what they think they see.
And what do you want them to know? Like if someone were to ask you, who are you?
Yes.
Which is the hardest question
Yeah.
ever.
What I want them to know is that I'm a real woman, but I'm also very passionate about the work that I do. I'm deeply spiritual in terms of this is my calling. And it's not religion. It's about having a passion for other people. I want them to know that I'm very kind and loving, much to my detriment at times.
Give too much.
Yes. Yeah, I give way too much. But it goes back to knowing who you are. And so many times we set ourselves up to experience some of the things that we experience. And that has been the case in my life. So that's a part of who I am. And the other piece is that we don't know where we come from.
And why is that important?
It's very important because if you've ever done work with what we call a genogram.
Tell me what a genogram is.
Okay, most people think of genealogy.
Okay.
Okay, who is your grandfather and blah, 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 all the way down. And that's really nice information, but it doesn't tell me anything about those people. So when we talk about a genogram, we talk about understanding the emotional patterns between your parents, between your siblings, between your aunts and your uncles and your grandparents, great-grandparents. And so once we understand this and you put a genogram up and you put all those colored lines, red for abuse and separation, and you will see patterns. And I do this, I do this with groups twice a year. Every time I do my own genogram, I'm shocked at another pattern that I see in my own life.
Really?
Exactly. So I think that, again, we're not taught how to be in a relationship, but we're not even open to understanding that we don't know what we're doing until we don't know what we're doing. We get caught up in the dopamine high.
Okay.
Yes, a new relationship. It's like LSD.
Yes.
And everything's beautiful. The world, everything is just wonderful.
Right.
And, he is fine. I love that odor that he has. And then when the dopamine is gone, you say, "What's that?" Exactly. So no, we don't know. We really don't know. We are drawn to particular pheromones, but we're also drawn to certain patterns. And many times, as Harville Hendrix, who does Imago work, he says that when we meet our love choice, it's like it's daylight. It's wonderful, and it's daylight. Now, if you look in the sky, you will not see stars in the daytime.
That's correct.
But when the night comes, what do you see?
Stars.
Exactly. Where were those stars during the day? They were still up there, but you couldn't see them. And so we are drawn to relationship patterns that mimic our family, mimic family dynamics. We don't think that we're moving toward pain, but as soon as it gets dark, you experience that thing with that partner and you are triggered from emotional memories, and the battle begins, and that same old dance that you've done over and over and over again is repeated. And so people they don't even know they need help until they're broken.
Right, and then you talk about the dance, and you have a great analogy because the work that you do, which is so phenomenal, uses that analogy a lot because dancing is just an amazing.
It is amazing. A part of my story is that I didn't dance for 25 years because in our religion, dancing was a sin. And so by the time I went back to trying to learn to dance, I had no rhythm.
Really?
I had no rhythm. I am the one black
you
person
look like
in
you
the
have
world.
rhythm.
I have no rhythm.
Did you get it back?
I can count.
What?
So I can count. And so the whole time I'm dancing, I know and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 6, and I end up at the right place, and I'm graceful. So you work with what you have.
That's right.
I am graceful, but I am not particularly rhythmically inclined.
Okay.
So going back to this whole analogy of the dance, I grew up in California. I learned cha-cha, salsa. I learned how to fast dance. When I moved to DC, there was this dance called hand dancing.
Yes.
And so I took hand dance classes for 24 weeks with Brad.
Yeah.
And when I graduated, I got the most improved certificate.
Oh, right.
It was that bad.
Ooh,
I'm the front row person, so I never knew they were laughing at me. But I continued to go for 3 years afterwards to the classes because I knew I didn't get it yet. I still didn't get it, because in order to dance, you have to get out of your head and you've got to move into a kind of flow with the music. You've got to feel the energy, and I was afraid to let go.
And tie that to relationships, because that
Yes,
is the most
we have
interesting.
a particular dance that we know, and we hold on to it, and we're in our heads. We can't experience anything new because we don't relax enough to follow another leadership. Many times in our culture, Black women in particular, this whole thing of the man of the house and following his lead, we don't like that. Unless you've been paying bills by yourself long enough, and then you're saying, "Oh, leader, take me."
Please
take me.
Right.
But what I learned in dance class, it was fascinating, was that when your partner, the leader, signals a turn for you, you turn on your own strength. And the way that you turn and the grace with which you turn and the energy comes solely from you. Your solar plexus, you are balanced and centered, and you turn around and you always spot that partner. You come around, you spot that partner.
Wow.
I learned how to do multiple spins in that way. And so when you talk about relationship as a dance, if the leader knows to protect the partner, if the leader is conscious about making the couple look good, and if the follower decides to not backseat drive in the leadership. Now, there are some times when the woman is the leader because she does it better than he does, but she makes it look good with him. And so we don't give up anything when we're in a relationship dance. We discover new things, we discover new moves, and we have a lot of fun doing it.
And so how do you do that if what you've kind of set the stage for is that in our genograms or in our emotional history, that there's so much historical brokenness? How do we come together and figure out how to fix that brokenness?
Well, what I do, and I have a course called the Relationship Academy, and one of the first things I did, I said, we need a long course. We used to do these mountaintop retreats, and people were feeling all good, and they go back in the valley and it's all gone. They're cussing before they can get to the front door. And so this particular program is a 20-week program.
Yeah, that's a big commitment.
It's a big commitment. First 10 weeks. Once a week
for 20 weeks.
That's right. The first 10 weeks, the men and women are in separate groups. And so all of this getting to know yourself, you do it within the safety of your same gender.
So that means you don't have to have a partner. You don't have to be partnered.
You don't have to
single,
be partnered. Exactly.
Just trying to figure out who you are.
Exactly.
Because there's so many single broken people.
Exactly. And the people who are already married and they're in the circle with the single women say, well, you guys are already married. What are we going to have in common? The married women say, I wish I knew this before I got married. Then we would not be here making up, trying to heal. It is good that you are here. So in those separate groups, they reveal their secrets, they tell their story, they find out who they are. We do a personality assessment, and we eliminate language like good, bad, right, wrong, because that's shame producing. We ask.
Shame is huge.
Shame is huge. That's why we keep secrets. That's why I tell my secrets to the group, and they are stunned. And they say, how could you do that? Oh, it's easy. Once you've released it.
Don't you feel that?
Oh my goodness,
Once you
you're so
tell
light.
who you really are,
you feel
you get free.
So light. You are free.
You get free.
You are free. So when they put me on the pedestal, I just climb right back down. And I say, let's take this journey together. The thing that has been very surprising to me, I've always had wonderful relationships with my sister friends. And so I expected the women to just bond immediately. There was a lot of competition with the women, the first group that I did. I was just shocked.
You were shocked?
I was shocked. But with the men, I said, oh, it's going to take forever for these men. After the first class, we would end, and the men are out in the parking lot still talking. You guys need to go home. I have seen men willing to tell deep, deep secrets in this group. When we're talking about professional men, highly accomplished men, doctoral level, master's level, architects,
Because you think
CEOs.
they crave that connection.
Exactly.
They really want to be connected with another brother.
They want to be connected. They want it. And when it's time, when we do the next 10 weeks and we bring the genders together, the men usually say, I don't want to go. Can't we have one more week?
Oh,
I don't want to go over
really?
there. And I learned through this work that I've done how much power women have in the life of the man who loves her. We have no idea.
No idea.
No idea. One guy said, there are two profound statements that I've learned from men in our course. One man said, I feel like I'm always behind enemy lines.
Wow. What
Isn't
does
that something?
mean?
You know, if you are in war
Yeah.
and you're behind enemy lines, the enemy is all around you. You can never let your guard down. And so when a woman says, I want to see your emotions, he's saying, you got to be kidding. The last thing I told you, you beat me over my head with it. I will never tell you. We are masters of emotion. Women are.
Women are.
And
we
so-
use it.
And we use it. And men will fight physically, and then they'll bump chests and say, let's go get a beer.
Yes.
Women, not only will they fight you through relationships. And they want everyone else to dislike you and isolate
And
you.
manipulate.
And manipulate. And I love women, but our strength is relationships.
Sure.
Our weakness is also relationships. And so because many of us are socialized to not throw the punch, we throw the emotional punch. And
that
men,
hurt worse. That hurts worse.
it hurts
often.
It hurts worse, and men heal much more slowly than women do. So many people think, well, he's out there dating someone else. He didn't care about me. No, he is taking an aspirin so he can feel better in the morning.
Right.
He is just, it's palliative care. It makes you feel okay, but he is so wounded. And if you get in the circle with the men, they will talk about heartbreak.
Wow.
Yes.
Present heartbreak?
Present
Or will they talk
and
about
past,
the old?
but they remember the first love lost.
Do they?
Absolutely.
And they hang on to it.
And
it doesn't heal.
That's when they learn to walk a little taller and bolder, and I'm the man, which means you won't get that close. You can't have a successful relationship unless you decide to be vulnerable.
And how do you get the men and the women then back together?
Oh, we have
Because-
all kinds of
Because
activities.
they're separate.
We
right?
have activities.
And that's really interesting to me that you do the same gender groups and
Yes.
have them work on themselves.
Exactly.
And then they come back together.
Yes, we have different activities that they engage in, and there's a saying in the group: turn the light on yourself. So we give them pins with a light on it, and they are to bring it every week to class. And so when we give them the activity and they start talking about that's what she did. Turn the light on yourself. What did you do?
Wow.
What was going on? How were you showing up? One guy, and I hope it's a guy we can bring in.
Sure.
They had to do mass at the end.
Yes.
Are we out of time?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
We had to do mass at the end. They did mass, and so they did these beautiful masks. I said, I want you to create a mask that represents what you want to show the world. And so these masks are phenomenal. I went in and I looked at the mask and I said, okay, now turn the mask around and I want you to write all the emotions that you hide behind this mask. And they wrote all these emotions. And so when it was time for graduation, we brought the mask and the couples came and the singles came and they had their friends and family there. It's a really nice occasion. One guy, he stood up and he had his mask and it looked just like him. It was a replica.
How do they know? How do they create the mask? They create them first, early?
They created it the last class.
Oh, in the last
During
class.
the last class.
Okay.
While we had exit interviews, they were doing their masks.
Okay.
And so we brought the masks to them to give them at the graduation. But they had to talk about what they learned. Wow. And so this guy said, he said, this mask looks just like me. It looks like me because I'm always hiding.
Wow. And do you think most men are?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
That makes it so difficult for women and men to come
Yeah.
together. And we talk about this, it just seems formidable. It seems.
But you know what? We have ways of getting men to understand. We tell men, if you gaze in a woman's eyes and you talk to her and you engage her, it makes the oxytocin flow. And the oxytocin is the bonding hormone.
From the woman.
From the woman,
Right.
exactly. So they got it. He said, wait, that's the
Let me go
sex
find
talk,
somebody to
right?
gaze
That's the
into."
sex talk. And the one guy who said in the morning, his wife said, good morning, he did like this. And we said, no,
Oh,
gaze
gosh.
in her
Right,
eyes,
right.
yes, and say, good morning, sweetie.
Right.
And so he said the next week he came in and he said, well, I said good morning. He said, and I said, how was it? He says, oh, it was good. And he said, before I left the day, I kissed her and gazed in her eyes, and as I was walking out, she grabbed my tie and pulled me back and gave me another kiss.
Isn't that
So
something?
it is. It really is. We all
Just
want to
that
connect.
nugget.
That nugget. Just that nugget.
That's really powerful.
It is.
That's really powerful.
It is.
So we have about 30 seconds. What would you
Okay.
like to leave with? A powerful thought that you may want to leave our guests with.
Well, I think what I would say is that we need to examine where we invest our time and our money.
Yeah.
People plan weddings and they never have couples therapy. Never do it. People go on cruises, but they never invest in their relationships. The most important thing we ever do in life is relationship.
Thank you so much. And I can't wait to get you back.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Dr. Barbara Tobias-Holtz for joining me today. If you would like more information on any of the topics we discuss on the show, you can contact Dr. Tobias-Holtz at New Perspectives Psychotherapy and Consulting, 5627 Allentown Road, Suite 205, Camp Springs, Maryland, 20746, or call her at 301-899-1503. You can also email her at bqtobias@mac.com, and you can visit her website at www.newperspectivespc.com. If you would like to reach me, you can visit me on Facebook and Twitter at Dr. Sis. I'm Dr. Cislina Grosser Ledbetter. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time on A Healthy Mind.
Thank you.